Welcome back to another weekly recap of PTG Draft League. We are going to recap week 2. It's Zeoni here again with Anders. We were going to have Devon in the stream with us today as well, but due to issues, he wasn't able to make it this evening. We have had a bit of a shake-up this week, major one. We don't normally have this happening so early in the draft league, but we have already had a coach drop out due to technical issues. If you guys have been following along, you may have noticed that one of our draft battles was on Showdown, and that is because one of our coaches, his switch wasn't working. It is not able to be fixed in time to complete this season, so we have had to step in with a new coach. So that was the Los Angeles Lycan Rocks, Danny here. He has dropped out and his team has been taken over by the Season 2 Draft League winner Andy of the Nevada County Caterpies. He's done 5 trades just to get his team a bit more comfortable to his playstyle, so we'll have a quick look at that now. So as you can see, we've got Darmanitan has gone out, Volcarona has come in, Mudsdale has dropped out from the B tier and come when we've brought Weavile in, I believe. Whimsicott and Tyrantrum have swapped around. Ludicolo and Haunter have swapped out with Pangora and Lantern as well.
Yeah. All the B tier swapped. He kept the A tier, so I mean 2 really strong A tiers we've got here. Volcarona, I think, is really strong as well. Weavile, we will see how amazing Weavile is when we get to the kill leaderboard, but it's an amazing one. I was talking to Andy, and he said it himself as well. He does wish that he could have just a little bit more trades. You know, Steelix and Avalog pretty much fill the same role, but Steelix just doing it better. You need that steel typing. Tyrantrum is good. It's good to get the dragon type in, and it is an underrated dragon type in my opinion. Definitely the strongest physical dragon type in B tier. Access to Rockhead, Head Smash, which is just amazing, Dragon Dance, and then if you're looking for more coverage, the Jaw, is it Jaw Power? I believe it boosts all your biting moves, so it gets
Strong Jaw?
biting moves boost. Strong Jaw, that's it. Yeah, so Strong Jaw. Ludicolo is just a really cool typing. I think mostly average stats all around. And Haunter is pretty nice. Is basically just a downgrade from Gengar. Although unlike Gengar, it still has Levitate, which Gengar lost in I think Gen 8. And Levitate is really good for the line because they still have their poison typing, so they're weak to ground. So still having Levitate, being able to switch in on ground moves is really nice. And Haunter actually has a really high special attack for a middle stage evolution. And it still has like 95 base speed, so it's still outspeeding most things this draft, which is really nice. And then Galar Rapidash, I think is still really good. So I can't remember if he didn't trade that in, did he? He kept that, but I still think that's a really good one.
Yeah. So his trades were finalized immediately, so he was able to use them straight away for week 2. So we'll move on to the leaderboard now and see where everyone's sitting at. So this is the red leaderboard. We had a couple of timer battles again this week, but most of them came to a conclusion. The leaderboard is still very, very close together. We've had 2 wins, 2 losses, and then everyone else has had 1 win and 1 loss. So at the moment, still early in the season, so we will expect the leaderboard to spread out a bit more, but right now it is very tight, so those differentials will come in handy with your standings. But that all depends on how it goes further down in the season.
What I loved about this particular week, it really just goes to show you how much things can shake up. Apart from my match, which I was lucky with or whatever, every single person who won last week lost this week. So it just flipped completely. I think that was super cool, super interesting.
And yeah.
So you know, yeah.
Yeah. goes to show as well, when people start getting a bit more comfortable with their teams as well, they get a bit of a feel of it in the first week or so. And this is when people will experiment and push the boundaries, and that's where you will see some weird upsets, some strange wins, and then just some very strange battles in general.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I mean, if
next
you look at
week we're kicking off with the Birmingham Buzzwolves versus the Mid Valley Mouths, then the Atlanta Braveries versus yourself, the Simiwinny Sears, the Lionheart Lucarios versus the Mighty Psyducks. Next week has the Gibson Garbadors versus the Blazing Torchics, and finishing off with the Utah Muse versus the San Diego Wingulls.
I think we've got a few really interesting matches coming ahead. I think the Lionheart Lucarios versus the Mighty Psyducks is going to be an underrated matchup. Last time those two faced, Bam was on a major winning streak, and it was Myonac was on the major losing streak. And Myonac it was just before the playoffs. It was the last match before playoffs. Myonac had no chance to get into playoffs, and he managed to beat Bam. And I think that was a really interesting match. So this could be a revenge story. Does Bam want to get some revenge on Myonac? Will Myonac beat Bam again? I think that's definitely a match to look out for. So make sure to
Definitely a
tune
grudge
in
match.
on the PTG face. Yeah, good grudge match. I have a bit of a grudge match against Jay. So nearly every draft I've played in, in every draft that I've played in, Jay has been in as well. And we've always done kind of similarly in where we performed in each draft. In draft one, we both made it to the semi-finals. In draft two, we both made it to playoffs. In draft three, we both did kind of poorly. But every single time I faced him, I have lost. So I really want to win this
This is
one.
going to be an exciting week coming up.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll move on to the blue leaderboard now. This is a little bit more spread out, but not by much. Still a lot of 1-1s, but we do have an extra 2002 on there, and I think the differential spread out a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
I think, we only had
I
one
can't say
match
I'm
in this
too
one that came to timer, which is thankful, because 20-minute matches.
a lot more decisive, yeah, on this
Yeah.
side for the most part.
Yeah.
Not surprised to see Harron and Leo at the top there. Very experienced players, both of them, both very much draft veterans within the PTG draft as well. Andy coming in from the massive loss the previous team had last week for a nice 4-0 win. I'll expect to see him racing up the charts, making up for that slow start that he had because of coming in for week 2. So I expect to see him racing beyond 7th.
So next week we've got the Fire Corviknights facing off against the Ottawa Superiors. We have the PKS Noobs Kings versus the Sneaky Sableyes, which I think is going to be a very interesting match, that one.
For sure.
The Anaheim Appletons versus the Season 2 champ, the Nevada County Caterpies. The Russian Boltums versus the Ankara Arcanines, and then the Dragonites versus the Holy Crusaders.
Yes. Lots of interesting matches coming this week 3, I think.
Yes. And yeah, I think from week 3 onward, I think is when we start to really see where things are going, things are moving with the draft.
For sure.
By week 6,
Definitely.
Things are more finalised and there's not going to be as much movement. We'll see. Every draft is different.
Yeah.
We'll quickly go over the trades for this week. So, as we can see,
a lot more trades this week, yeah.
yeah. So last week, as we discussed in the very first video, we had Indeedee female changing in for the Indeedee male for the Mighty Psyducks, and then Andy with his 5 immediate trades that he got for this last week that were ready for this week that's just happened. But going on to next week, The Ottawa Superiors are switching out 3 of their team, so using up 3 of their 5 trades. The Holy Crusaders are switching out Jellicent for Galvantula, and the Atlanta Braveries are switching out Porygon Z for Gudra. And these will all be in set and ready to go for this coming week.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did see a handful of trades that aren't in this. I'm assuming they're coming in for week
They're
4, and we'll
coming
be
in for
talking
week
about
4,
them
yep.
next. Yeah. I'm just interested. So, yeah, so we can see the Ottawa Superiors have really changed a lot of what they've got here. So we got 3 trades directly from Vincent alone. But getting Excadrill and Hippowdon together is obviously really nice for him. And Slurpuff is sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say you can see he's moving towards a different type of sand team to what he initially had. So
for sure.
getting Hippowdon in
I
for a
mean,
sand setter and bringing Excadrill in for a bit of extra power.
yeah. I mean, Tyranitar is amazing. I was planning on using it originally, but using it as your sand setter isn't too reliable. It's a lot harder to safely switch it in, just because them getting that fighting predict, just instantly wiping out your Tyranitar is just not ideal. So I do think, basically, I know they swapped Tyranitar for Excadrill, but it essentially feels more like Tyranitar for Hippowdon for the sand itself. So I think that's quite good. Slurpuff is an amazing one. Having Unburdened, so when it uses up its item, it doubles its speed, is crazy. It's able to lay sticky webs for some reason, and it gets Belly Drum. So use those moves in whatever combo you like, and you're just laughing. So I think that's a really nice trade. Although he'll probably miss his Prankster when it's gone, because Sableye is awesome. And Porygon Z for Gudra is quite a different trade. Gudra being a very defensive inlined mon. Although it has decent special attack too, whereas Porygon Z is very much a glass cannon special attack attacker with a lot of coverage.
Alright, so weekly
Oh, well, then.
matchups.
Yes.
Okay, so the very first one, I don't particularly even want to talk about this one. This was 5-6, which means that in the
Yeah.
entire match, 1 Pokemon went down.
Yeah, in the last 3 minutes.
Yes, it was a very long, slow, hard slog.
Normally, we recommend that you go and watch draft videos. This is the one video that I think both of us can agree. We recommend that you don't watch. Just
Yeah.
trust in that. It was not
I will just
entertaining.
quickly point out on the Birmingham Buzzwolls, Slowking and Ordino, both Regenerator mons. They spent pretty much the entire match just switching in and out. Wish, protect, switch, regenerate. And Jay on the Atlanta Braveries just wasn't able to deal enough damage really to take anything out and slow that stalling momentum, if that's even a thing.
Yeah. Well, the issue you can see here is most of his mons are relatively defensively inclined as well.
Yes.
So with just not having enough raw power to get through that regenerator, it was always going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say I'm too surprised that it was Surfetched that ended up being the one that fainted, because Surfetch was the only one that really had enough raw power to be able to do anything to these Pokemon. But unfortunately, as a result of this stalling tanky strategies, that was the one that ended up fainting.
Yeah. So. I am one of the biggest haters of the Sword and Shield 20-minute single timer. Everyone who knows me knows how much I hate the timer. This time the timer was too long for this match, so I was glad when it was over. Still, very cautious plays, very, very smart plays. It would be interesting to see how many turns this goes on Showdown, if they ever did that. I don't know if I would ever watch it. I feel like it would get to about 150, 200 moves, but let's not go there. Let's not even get to that hypotheticals.
In theory, you watched the whole thing through without skipping it all, unlike me. This is the only match that I skipped through. And what would your prediction for winning would have been? out of curiosity, out of the two, who do you think would have won? Should it have gone for unlimited time?
I
Because obviously at five
honestly don't
six,
know.
you can turn that around so easily.
Mm, I think the Birmingham Buzzwells probably still would have pulled out because they did have that cleric on their team, so they could potentially
Yeah.
have toxic stalled out the majority of Jay's mons. But yeah, depending on how it played, depending on if there were any lucky crits or certain things that
Yeah.
happened.
I didn't have enough time to really watch it. Obviously, well, it's not that I didn't have enough time, I just didn't want to. But looking at the Birmingham Buzzwolves teams, he has nothing here that can deal with Clefable, and that's kind of interesting to me. Did Jay bring out the Clefable very much?
He did towards the end. He was trying to calm mind it up and just get its stats up enough to do damage, but
Yeah.
just it wasn't doing enough damage in the
Yeah,
end.
too defensively inclined to get through the tanks, especially
And it
Slowking,
did
I would
not, the
imagine.
Clefable did not have Wish on it, so once its leftovers, I believe, were knocked off, it had no way of getting health back in an
Oh,
extended
and he didn't
fight.
give it a recovery mode.
No.
Okay. See,
Hmm.
if this was Showdown, I would say that Clefable alone would have been enough to deal with the enemy team here, but that's not how it turned out.
No. Moving on. Let's go past this one.
Moving on, yes, sorry.
Move on to something a bit more exciting. So we had
Yes,
Dev versus Mayank. So Mid Valley
yes.
Mouse versus Lionheart Lucarios. And yeah, Dev managed to come away with the win this time. Uh, what was your thoughts on this game?
It's actually, if you look at the matchup alone, it's actually a really good and interesting matchup. Both of them definitely had the capabilities of winning, but it really came down to one thing, and I noticed this whilst they were playing. Um, Dev was playing and working out what Myonak was going to do the next turn, and Myonak was reacting to every turn, and that's what caused him to lose because Dev was thinking one turn ahead, and Myonak was clearly just reacting to basically what Dev was doing on that turn. So Myonak was on the back foot the whole game. And I think Myonak just sort of panicked a little bit. I did actually talk to him about this afterwards. And he just ended up kind of wish protecting too much. And I just think that came down to him not really knowing what to do. He made two really risky switch ins, um, which was his Dragonite and his Dog Trio really early on. So between those two, his team could handle all of Devon's team here offensively. But by losing them really early to bad switches, he essentially cost the game because those two were, although they didn't directly die first thing, they were out of commission very early on from the bad switches, and it just meant that he was only left with his tanky mons. You know, the only mons he had for the majority of the game was a Moongus, Sableye, and Vaporeon. So yeah, it was it was
Definitely a
also
match
a
controlled
game that
by
went to the
Devon.
timer. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Devon was also playing a bit defensively, but I think it was in reaction to Mayonak's moves rather than stalling or whatever, because any opportunity that Devon had to attack, he was attacking. But there was opportunities that he would need to recover and rest, all that sort of stuff. The usual stuff.
Yep.
So I definitely think Dev was more offensive than Mayanak on this occasion and just outpredicted him for the game.
So we have your match, the Simiwinny Sears versus the Gippsland Garbadors. This was the first match for week 2. This one had me on the edge of my seat the whole way through. This was
Yeah.
such an exciting match. It just from you didn't know which way this was going to go until right near the end, really.
Even right near the end, the last, it wasn't until. So, like, if we talk about the match here a little bit, I find it interesting, firstly, that we both brought 3 C tiers. Like, he didn't bring any B tiers at all, and I only brought the one. I skipped my other A tier.
You brought a
So we
good
were
B
really
tier
relying
though.
on C tier. Yeah. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Watch this match.
um, So what I like the biggest thing for me, I won't spoil too much because we want you guys to watch these videos. But Luxray, I had no idea what it was carrying until right at the end, and my whole plays relied on my Luxray not being able to KO Amon at the end there. So it was a really intense match. Like right at the beginning, I thought, oh, "Damn, I'm in control." I've managed to take out two of his mons or whatever quite easily, and then he managed to get me on the back foot completely with Golurk. Golurk was doing some work for sure.
We'll move on to this one. So we had Bam versus Reagan, so the Mighty Psyducks versus the Utah Muse. So
Yes.
Bam's obviously got his second wind. He was probably a little bit too cautious the first match, which cost him, but this time he came out classic Bam. He just had control right from the start.
Yeah.
He knew exactly what was going on this match, and from the very first move, pretty much just had control.
This was basically like a hyper offensive version of Dev versus Myonex match. This match went exactly as basically Bam planned. He was working a turn ahead, and all Reagan could do was react to his moves. There was no point at any point that Reagan was able to make a move that she wanted to make. She was just having to react to Bam's moves over and over whilst Bam was beating her down with hyper offense. And it really worked. 4-0. Very strong output from Bam. Um, and it's crazy because his son wasn't really like, it didn't last that long, but it did enough to completely dent the enemy team. Yeah, it was a really good match.
Yeah, he kept Torkoal in the back enough to keep making sure that that Sun was around, but that Torkoal also put in a lot of work, especially right at the start there.
Yeah, it put
Just
in more work than the Charizard. The Charizard got the Mammoth but the Torkoal managed to really. It got obviously the Quagsire and then really dented the Lantern as well.
mm.
So that was really nice.
And I think straight away, as soon as that Quagsire went down, that was probably the biggest wall to a huge
Yeah,
part of Bam's team. And once that went down, there wasn't anything to stop that momentum.
no. The real MVP here, of course, although not in the Sun team, was Nidoking, who got 3 kills in this match out of the 4. So Nidoking is just really nice for being able to,
He's got fairly good coverage.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just able to pick things off that have been damaged by others and just go crazy. It was really good. Really strong Pokemon.
And then the last one that we have for the red division, we have Nat versus Kasim, so the Blazing Torchics versus the San Diego Wingulls. 0-5 against Nat, so basically Nat had dished out on him what he dished out on Bam last week. So,
Yeah,
um, Weavile
yeah. This
MVP,
is
that's all I can say.
yeah. I mean, we were talking about how nothing early could deal with Clefable. Well, nothing on Nat's team could deal with Weavile, and Weavile's a hell of a lot more offensive than Clefable is, at least for most scenarios. And he just had nothing that could deal with it at all. It was, as I alluded to earlier, Weavile is a very strong Pokemon, and if you don't have something to deal with it, it will just run through everything. Yeah, very strong recovery from Kasim here.
Mm. Moving on to the blue matchups. First one off the bat is Leo versus Michael. So PKS Noobs King versus the Fire Corviknights. So this is last season's draft champ versus one of our newcomers. 5-0. So
Yeah,
that is a very sore, very, very painful way to go out. But when you know
yes,
you're versing the number one from the previous season, you gotta take that into consideration as well.
yeah.
I
I
think
mean, this was
this one
just.
started off with a lot of pivoting from Lior, wasn't it? He
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just
I mean, Michael was just not able to really know what Leo was going to keep in, and he was just getting that chip with the pivoting. Um, yeah, it was just a crazy match. He was trying to get the Michael was trying to get lots of defenses going with the Iron Defense Appleton, but Leo just had it completely under control. Um, the only thing, yeah, and then there was Corviknight as well. And what was really interesting, so the Corviknight, I did feel a bit sorry for. So he got paralyzed by Thunderbolt, which is only 10%, and then it fainted the next turn only because it got then paralyzed by Thunderbolt again, which it stayed paralysis. I think Leo completely won that anyway, but that was
yeah,
something worth noting.
yeah, just a bit of extra
That
salt
para
in the
really
wound.
sucked. Yeah, yeah. After Shuckle went down to Clefable, Incineroar basically from Leo just wipes the
Cleaned
whole
everything
team.
up.
Yeah. It once the tanks had gone, once Corviknight gone, once Appleton and Shuckle had gone, Incineroar could just go in there. It had nothing to stop it.
Second match for Blue Team was Vincent versus Jeff. So the Ottawa Superiors versus the Anaheim Appletons. This
This was
match,
quite the match.
yes. So this is one of the things when it comes to Pokemon where as much as we love how competitive it is, the random generation of certain secondary effects, certain things that can happen in the match, can mean that the best player in the world can still go down purely because of really bad things. Um, this one was, let's put it this way: Skuntank flinched better than my Togekiss ever did in the
In the
last
whole season.
in an
Yeah.
entire season.
Both me
And
and Ro ran a Togekiss. She ran one last season. I ran one the season before that. And this Skuntank flinched more than either of our Toadkisses in the whole season. I did jokingly call it a serene grace Skuntank.
yeah, and yeah, the
Yeah,
hack
it's
scores
crazy.
were on Vincent's side, and he got a couple of very strong crits early in the game, which seriously crippled Jeff's teams. And then just continue to add salt in the wound, just Skuntank coming in and flinching everything it possibly could. Just
It
yeah,
was crazy. I mean, there's a few matches out there which you can say they won because of luck. And usually it's from just one really lucky thing, like a 10% freeze chance, or like a 5% or 10% miss. But the percentages we're talking here, I mean, I've got it on the notes here. So we have one crit, two crits, uh, one flinch, two flinches. Then we have is that three? Yeah, three flinches. So we got five different cases of really good luck here. Um, or like, if any one of these didn't happen, maybe I think it could have gone the other way.
I,
So
I
it was just
think
really crazy.
I think it really came down to the crits. If one of the crits didn't happen, then there was a chance that Jeff could have scrambled it back. I
Yeah,
think as soon as those two crits happened back to back, it was over. There was no coming back from that. Mr. Rhyme was able to pretty much cover the majority of the rest of the team with nothing to really
for
pull
sure.
it into check. So
Yeah.
yeah, once those crits had happened on those key mons and everything else that followed with those extra flinches at the end, it really just was just that extra salt in the wound for what already was a match that was going fairly well on one side and then just didn't.
And those crits really did matter as well, because both Bronzong and Ordino had abilities to recover, or like moves and abilities to recover. And neither of them would have fainted if it wasn't for crit. And I believe in his video, he even said that it was a high roll crit, so a low roll crit wouldn't even have killed. It was literally the highest percentage of crit damage that ended up killing it after calcs,
Yeah.
which is just crazy.
But still, that is the game we play, and you have to
Absolutely.
always be aware. And honestly, a match like this is something you only ever see probably every 3 or 4 drafts. We had a match like this in the very first season where Togekiss used up all of its flinching in the very first season, which is why my Togekiss couldn't flinch during season 3. And you pretty much beat Abdo purely just by spamming air slash and flinching every single thing he threw in front until they died.
I never let Abdo forget it.
Yep. So, it happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to the worst of us. And yeah, just got to bounce back from there and realize it wasn't how you played. Yeah, and just
I'm
keep
just
on out.
glad that match didn't come down to Toxic Stall, though.
Yes.
5 out of the 6 Mons on the Apple team had Toxic.
Yes.
That could have been just as painful as Jay's match if
This
it
may have been
hadn't
why
gone
all the
down.
hacks happened, because no one really wanted to see
Yeah,
the toxic stall, especially after Jay and Jamie's
this is
match.
your karma for putting on 5 Mons with Toxic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on, we've got the Sneaky Sableyes versus the Bow Russian Boltons. So Roops versus Akin. And yeah, this one, I had a different idea of how this match was going to go, and it didn't pan out quite the way I thought. And yeah, very strong game. Akin did manage to get away with the win in the end, and he played incredibly smart for this match.
For sure.
Let's try to check
It
in
was
notes.
definitely, I mean, Bruce was looking really scary at one point. He had a +4 Venusaur at one point, rolling around. So that was really scary. I don't know how much difference it makes, but that frozen, being frozen, did happen to Greedent here. So that may have made a big difference, depending what he was planning to do with the Greedent. We never actually got to see it in use, sadly, not properly, because it got frozen. Yeah, it was just a bit crazy. Oh no, it was sorry, this
Yeah,
is my bad. It was
Akin.
Akin who had the Greedent, because I wanted to see it in use. Okay, so we didn't get to see the Greedent in use, but it didn't matter in the end. So yes, okay, of course. Roops, I remember Roops was really kind of leading the match to begin with. Well, we had the +4 Venusaur killing Toxapex, which was really nasty. But then Ruth started to make the recovery, but it wasn't until the end that Swoobat comes in and finishes everything off, getting Joint one of the most kills in a match, which really shows you that is it? It's not. Is it Moody that gets in double stat raises?
Simple.
Crazy.
Simple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
simple.
yeah.
Simple Swoobat is just mad. So yeah, no, that was an awesome match. God, a bit flipped in my head there. I was thinking so much on the Greedent.
Moving on to the Nevada County Caterpies versus Jeremy from the Dragonite. So Andy versus Jeremy. And yeah, taking over a team, coming into a draft without really having much notice. But I believe Andy had been watching draft for earlier since we started.
Yeah,
But yeah, taking over another team is always very interesting because you're basically coming in and having to adjust to a plan someone else had. And even though you get 5 trades that you can try and switch the team up as best you can, you're still just trying to make the best of someone else's team. So it's very
yeah,
interesting. He had kept in the Steelix, and did we saw that, didn't we? We saw the Tortomise Steelix try and do some weird things in there.
yeah.
So
Unfortunately, it didn't work out. It was Garchomp actually managed to KO Steelix fairly early on,
yeah.
but Felix was definitely one of the more interesting ones brought to the match. We had two major um, bad luck things go Andy's way. He might have won with an even bigger differential, but he ended up losing Tyrantrum because Tyrantrum was supposed to KO Garchomp, but it ended up missing Firefang, which is quite a low chance. And then another big one is he missed Will-O-Wisp, which was another big miss because it's got quite a high percentage chance of hitting. So missing that kind of sucks for him. But it didn't matter in the end. 4-0 is a very strong win. So, and another
Another
game, an
game.
example
Yeah, another
with
game that shows
Weavile
off
just
Weavile.
dominating.
Yes.
Bam having a go at me for having Slowbro in A tier, whilst Weavile is in here in B tier, just destroying everything.
As we'll see when we hit the leaderboards.
Yeah,
The last match we'll look over is the Ankara Arcanines versus the Holy Crusaders. So that is Harun versus Hassan. This one went to timer, 5-3. Another more slow game. And Harun's team, yeah, definitely designed to soak up hits.
for sure. I think this was one of the match where both players played a bit safer, but they both played relatively cleverly. I think there was no major mistakes. I still think the issue here is Cottony is just a little bit too delicate. When you go to the timer like this, it's almost like a guaranteed thing. Unless you are really planning to keep it alive with focus sash and switch or something, it's almost like you are knowing that you're going to sacrifice it to get maybe tailwind up or whatever you're using it for, and things like that might have just cost him the game. Although Harron was definitely more in control, and I think he came out with the stronger team this time. Was just ready to deal with everything Hassan had really. The Yeah, it was just a strong game all around. Went to the timer.
Yep.
Um,
And
yeah,
even though it went to the timer, we didn't have every single mon hit the floor. I don't believe we ended up seeing Manic Trick out at all.
no,
So yeah.
which really would have been useful for some pivots. But that Quagsire, I mean, Manectric is really Harron never lost a Quagsire, and it is borderline a free switch in on Manectric, of course,
Yep.
because it only really gets electric moves, and it does get fire moves in Flamethrower and Overheat, but fire moves ain't going to do anything to Quagsire. So I think that's why we didn't see much of Manectric.
Anything of Manic Trick.
Yeah, well, we didn't see anything of Manectric.
Yeah.
And Sylveon is obviously a really strong A tier. Yeah, sorry.
So, kill leaderboard now is Mamoswine is still up the top there, even though
Yeah.
it didn't put
It didn't get
it
any
didn't do
kills this
anything this
time.
week.
It just did so good last week that it's still here
Yep.
on the top.
Weavile for both divisions is on this leaderboard at the moment,
Yeah.
so it just really goes to show
Number
that
2 and number 5, which is
yes.
just crazy. If you add the Weavile points together, he's got 10 kills, which is just crazy.
And the Weavile for Blue Division only came in for week 2
week.
as well. So it's it's already on the leaderboard with 4 kills, having only been around for a week for the Blue Division.
Yeah. It's the same thing for my Gardevoir, with also 4 kills. That was only brought in this week. It wasn't in the first week, so both did quite well there. Although I suppose they both filled in similar niches in their matches, sort of finishing off the weakened teams.
Yep. Same with Swoobat, really.
Oh yeah, for sure. Swoobat did. Yeah, Swoobat did the exact same thing. So
Yep.
those 3 there did the exact same thing. All got 4-0.
All swooped in and just cleaned up the rest of the match. Yep.
Stole the kills from all the other teammates.
Jinx is still on the leaderboard. There's actually several Pokemon that are 3-1, so they're all that the 9th and 10th position
Yeah.
are actually tied between multiple Mons at this point, but that will
We
spread
had
out as the
lots
years
in
go.
3-1. So all I did was I just went through in draft order, the order of the teams appearing, and whichever one had 3-1. And I picked the first one from Red Division, which was Nat, and the first one who had that stat in Blue Division, which was obviously Groups.
Yeah.
So
Be interesting to
because
see if Jinx stays on the leaderboard, and because
yeah,
came out strong and he was sitting quite high in the top last week, but yeah, as we predicted from last week, it's probably going to fall off pretty quickly.
it's such a niche one. Yeah. I mean, Mr. Ryan basically does everything Jinx does, but better. So, yeah. Golug doing incredibly strong. Slowking's still here, incredibly strong from last week too. Yeah, and then obviously Leor's Incineroar came in and got the 3 kills itself. Did a similar job to Weavile, Guardfire, and Swoobat as well.
A lot of Mons that just came in to clean up teams once the
yeah.
WinCon was gone. Once the WinCon was there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for week 3. Week 2, moving on to week 3. So we will be back next week with the week 3 wrap up. Hopefully we'll get someone else in next week. We were hoping to have Devon again, Devon in for this week, but yeah, didn't happen. But hopefully next week, or we'll hopefully get someone else in as well, so you're not just hearing our voices.
Yeah.
All right.
Would be nice to get someone else as well.
If you've got this far, thank you for listening. Hope we were entertaining. Hope this encourages you to go watch week 2. And yeah, see you next week.
Yeah. See you next week.